Anybody have any questions? We'll start there. Okay. Looks like somebody's typing. No questions from the group. We're good. I want to make sure everybody is in the portal and started, their momentum at least, and whatever courses, that you want to select. You've started the on-demand. It's very important that we do that. Has everybody gone into the portal already, right? Everybody's doing momentum or has done momentum. Is that correct? Has anybody not completed that? Can you put up the link for cash flow spreadsheet, please? Yeah, I can do that. Okay, anybody? Is there anybody that hasn't got into the portal and started their on-demand for their momentum? Has everybody got that so far? Everybody's done that, yes? Fiona, have you done that? Kevin and Michelle have not done that? Momentum, yes. Cam and Rick have not done that. Gary, really? Okay. All right. So, okay, does everybody have the link for the portal? Let me get in there. Hold on. Okay. Okay. This is the link to the portal. Everyone should be able to log into this. Is everyone? So anybody that hasn't, you should be able to log into that. Your username and password was provided to you. So let me do something.
Hello.
Okay, give me 1 second. I'm just looking it over right now. Okay. See that? Saga. It has Canadian content, book and resources. Yep. Yes, it does. It's for Canadians. I heard Tark also. You did. I can't hear him. I would like to. We hear you, but you would need to talk slow and clear. Sorry, Tark. Let's just do it through the phone. The cash flow link was up for a second, then disappeared. Yeah, I did that. Hold on a second. Canadian content books and resources. The other one will have an American book. They're similar, but a little different. Yeah, they are. Is everybody in? The on-demands are not accessible yet. Really, Kev? If shouldn't be a problem for you to get in there. Has everybody got it? Use that link to log in. Oh, I see. For me, it doesn't really matter, I guess, because I get access to all of it. Awaiting an email from Jerry. Good. Okay, that's good. Let me try that link. Let's see if it brings up. I don't think it'll bring up anything different for me, but let's see. Let's see. Okay, use the Elite Legacy Portal one, this one, the Canadian one. This one. Use this one. Everybody to be Can you hear me now?
Everybody can.
Why is it? Can you hear me now? Yeah? Wow, this is exciting. Okay, so here we go. We're back. All right, let's so let me put up the files again for everybody. All right, and I want anybody that is not in the portal right now that hasn't been able to access that portal. I want you to send me an email right now, please, and say that you have not accessed the portal yet. Now, if you can access the portal, that's different. I'm talking about not being able to access the portal. If you have any challenges accessing the portal or stuff, anything like that, you haven't been able to access the actual portal yet, I would like an email. Okay? No, I won't. I won't be teaching that class. That's Elizabeth. Elizabeth will be doing that. She's awesome. You'll love her. Okay. So those are the files right there. If you haven't got them, you can have them now. Ed, you wanted them. Did you get the file? Does anybody need these files? You should say yes, because I'm going to take them away in about a second. 3 seconds. Okay. So nobody needs these files, right? Okay, I'm taking them away. They're gone. Okay? You still with me? You can hear me okay? Okay, good. All right. So what I'm going to do is I want to go through the cash flow sheet. I want to start with that. And then we're going to let Tarek help us out and better understand financing. Give me 1 second. Okay. Okay. All right. So give me 1 second. Tarek is trying to get in here. So you guys can't hear Tarek, right? I assume, right?
If I start talking now, Sam.
You can hear Tarek. Low, no, a little, yes. Okay. Tarek, it's faint,
Mortgage lenders,
very low.
insurers. Is there an option for you?
Okay, Tarek, I'm going to turn my volume down and see if that
Okay, Sam, can you hear me now? Okay. So on this volume, how does this chat? Testing, testing.
unless something comes up, where it's time sensitive, let me know in the text it's time sensitive or in an email it's time sensitive. If something's time sensitive, then text me. And say, Sam, it's time sensitive, if that's the case. Very rarely, though, that's the case. So I would love it if we could just email first, use emails or main communication, 24 to 48 hours, except weekends and holidays. That's my family time. Sometimes I'm in transit or I'm on a flight, so obviously I won't be able to respond then. But typically, we can commit to the 24 to 48 hours. Okay, is everybody clear on that? Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's do this. Let's. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. All right. Oh wait. Let me close that. Hold on one second. Because I want to make sure that my apologies, but if I don't make this larger when I do the recording and post it, I realize it doesn't work very well. You can't see it very well. So this is nice and big. You can see it. Does everybody see that okay? Okay, I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger, just to get it bigger. Okay. Okay. So this is an actual property somebody was working on. We're gonna look at it as an example. It really doesn't matter what property we use, but we'll be able to better understand, how this sheet works. So property address is here. Over here, if we go over here, we see standard area cap rate. I don't want you to worry about this too much, just because if you don't know the cap rate, the normal cap rate, and we all understand what cap rate is, right? Everybody understands. Anybody not understand cap rate? Anybody? And I want to make it clear. I want you to tell me if you're not clear on this, because it's important that as a group, we understand these things, so I can move forward as a group. And it doesn't take me a lot of time to explain it. And don't worry about it. If you don't know, usually it's two or three people that don't know. So please, I want you to feel like, it's important. Okay. Yeah. So cap rate really, all it means is what is the return on this property? What is the return on this property if I paid cash? If I paid cash for this property, what would be, if I paid $80,000, what would be the return on my money, right? Now, area cap rate, does that make sense to everybody? So it just means your return on investment if you paid cash for the property. Does everybody understand that? That's all it means. Cap rate means, what is my return if I paid cash for this property? So do we want that number to be higher or lower? If it's the return, on my property, if I paid cash, I want it to be higher. Yeah, I want it to be as high as possible, right? So when you see area cap rates, there's a kind of a standard rate in a particular area. So to give you an example, in Toronto, it's going to be around 3. In Calgary, it's going to be maybe a 4. In Vancouver, it's going to be a 3. Now, I don't want to use this sheet because it's not moving, it's not active. So give me 1 second. I'm going to open up a different sheet. Okay, let me open up this one because I know it's active. Okay, here we go. All right, so you'll see this move now. I'm just going to move this. So standard cap rate in this area, 8.75. If I change this to a 5, there we go. So as the cap rate goes down, right, we're going to see the price go higher. Everybody see that? So if I go lower the cap rate, the bigger the value. And what that means is in markets where, like a Toronto, which is a 3, it's not going to produce a great return. So you're going to pay more to make any sort of money on that property. So a standard cap rate might be, well, let's use 4 as across Canada. It's really between 3 and 5. If you're going to East Coast, it might be a little bit higher because of the vacancy rate. But does everybody understand what cap rate is now? Yes? We're good? Awesome. Okay. All right, we're going to continue. Just let me check something. Okay. So now let's go down this list here. So let's create a property. Let's go 350. Well, let's go 450. More closer to the range in Canada. Okay, so 450, a $450,000 property, and let's say that the units, let's say it's a 3-unit, okay, and the income from that is $36,000, okay, which is $1,000. Okay, does everybody see that? So we have a 3-unit. We put the gross amount in, $36,000, and it's going to break down per unit, average per unit. Okay, what the average per unit is. Okay, so the average per unit is $1,000, right? I have laundry, vending machines, parking, and other. If I have any income from there, let's say I have laundry machines and I make an extra $500 or $2,500, that's going to give me another $833 per unit for that laundry. Okay, that's what it's going to give me. Okay, so at the end of the day, just put in all the income. There's some amount that produces some kind of income. You put the amount there, and that's going to give you the number. Okay. All right. Okay. You stop me at any time if you are confused or don't understand. Okay. So let's go down here and we see expenses. Okay. So taxes on this property, it's going to be around $4,500 a year. Okay. Insurance is going to be more like 12. Well, with that, it's going to be about $2,000. Okay. Water and sewage, let's assume that they pay for it. Okay. Electricity, they pay their own. Water heater, let's say that is a, give me 1 second. That is a cost they incur themselves. Other 0, 0, 0. Okay. All right. Okay. So, let's just assume that the taxes and insurance we pay, the tenants pay everything else. Okay. Everybody got that? We good? Okay. So we're going to go down and we see vacancy and maintenance and management. Remember that this is going to take up 20% of your income. So this is going to do it automatically for you, right? So we have 5%, 5%, and 10%. That's going to calculate that automatically from the gross income. So this income is going to, we're going to take 5, 5, and 10 away to cover those costs because we don't want to manage our own properties. Now, total operating expenses we see is $13,700. That's that number right there, right? That's that number. They match, and that's 38% of the actual operating. That's operating expense. So 38.1% of this gross income, right? That's where that's coming from. Does everybody understand that, right? So 38.1%. That's coming from this. We're just taking the gross amount and we're saying, look, how much do we have to use for the net total operating expenses? Okay. Then we have net operating income, which is the difference. So if you add these two together, we're going to see that that's going to add up to this right here, right? So we see that we're going to 36,000. That adds up to 36,000. That's going to be the monies that we are taking it from, right? So obviously, if the expenses are 13,700, we're going to have 22,300 as our net operating income, and we have 38% and 61% looks healthy to us, okay? And we come down a little bit further, okay, and we look at financing. Now, this is a residential, so it's going to be, because it's under 5 units, it's going to be residential, okay? So 4 units or less, it's going to be green because it's 80-20. If we use 65, you see that it goes to red. The reason is that's typically a commercial loan from the bank, okay? So we have 30-year, and we can go, 3 for the first and 10 for the second for creative financing to get our mortgage cost, okay? Now, is everybody with me so far? We good? Any questions so far? It's okay if you do. Please let me know. This is the time to do it. All good? Good. Good stuff. All right. Okay. All right. So when we come down here and we look at it, remember these metrics? We got this from the 6 key indicators. You remember that? So average profit per unit is $144. That's a negative $144. Negative $144. We have GRM 12.5. What do we want that 12.5 to be? Well, if you come over here, it'll help you. We need that to be a 6. We have current cap rate is a 5. We like to see that as a 10. We have cost per unit. That's really not that important. Don't worry about that. But 150 a unit because of the number of units. And then we have coverage ratio is 0.81. We like to see that at 1.2. Did you remember these metrics? Does everybody remember these metrics? The one that's not, the coverage ratio wasn't covered in that, but we'll talk about that. Okay. So really, and I might start doing this, is really, you could start with this as 0 because it really doesn't matter. But we'll put the 450 back because really what we're trying to evaluate, what's the value of this property? And I'll come back to this. I promise I'll come back to this. But if you look, it tells us the value of the property for us is $223,000. That's the value of this property. Now, how are we coming up with $223,000? Well, it's really simple. Look, if the property doesn't make money, it's worth nothing to us. So we, based on what it makes, that's where value comes from. So if we look at net operating income as $22,300, we just multiply that by 10, and that's going to give us the value of the property. Why? Because that's going to give us the cap rate of 10. You see cap rate 10. So when the value of the property is $233, we see the cap rate now is 10. The GRM is 6.19. Not quite 6, but still good. We see the average profit per unit goes $222 per month. We see the coverage ratio is healthy now at 1.56. Okay, so let's go back for a second and just understand the coverage ratio. So coverage ratio, and this is what it is. Coverage ratio represents your ability to cover all your expenses plus carrying costs, right? Carrying costs, this carrying cost here, and what's left over. And we see that the coverage ratio is 0.81. Now, one coverage ratio means you break even. Just means you break even. So, I'll give you an example. Let's do this. Let's change this to a 5. Not quite. 4. Let's go 3. Almost there. 2.5. Oh, and let's go 2.2. There we go. So you see the coverage ratio is a 1. What does that mean? Well, look, the net operating income is 22.3. We saw that here, right? Everybody see that? The net operating income is 22.3. That's what we have left before financing. Okay, before financing. Okay, let's use that color. So before financing, just the expenses, we make $22,300 per year. Okay, of the income. But now we have to use, financing to carry this property, right? And to do that, we have to say, well, I got 22.3, but what's it going to cost me to carry this property? Well, we look down here, and if the debt's going to take us $22,265, then the coverage ratio is basically 1. That's what the coverage ratio is, basically 1, which means I'm bringing in enough money to just cover the debt service. So what am I making from each unit? 96 cents. Does everybody see that? So it's break even, basically. Okay? Does anybody have any questions about that? It's important. It's not, it's something that you want to understand. You don't need to understand really the metrics. You don't need to understand everything. What you need to understand is making sure that you have the numbers in, these expenses in, properly to ensure that you have a proper evaluation of the property. But I want you to understand these metrics and what they mean. I want you to understand this stuff. So if you don't, it's okay. Let me know. Let me go over it again. Does everyone understand what coverage ratio is? Everybody got that? Is there anybody not clear on coverage ratio? We're good? Okay, got it. Good. Okay. So the cap rate on this is not very good, right? Remember what cap rate is? That's the return on investment, right? On the whole property. So what it's telling us is we're only making 5%. 5% on this property if we paid it all off. Is 5% worth it? In my opinion, no. No. Yeah, go ahead. Question, go ahead. Okay, if anybody else has questions, just type them in. We can answer them. So just going back to coverage ratio, what we'd like to see is 1.2, which means that I can cover the expense, the coverage ratio, I can cover the expense of carrying the property, plus I have some money left over. So that's why we want to see 1.2. Let me give you an example. So let's say 1.5. That's close. 1.3. There you go. That's a 1.2. And you can see that if the coverage ratio is 1.2, all of a sudden we have profit. We're at 103. Okay? If you don't make the profit in the first year, is there a possibility to make it in the subsequent years? Well, yeah, but the way you're going to do that, Julian, is you're gonna end up putting more equity in the property. That's how you're going to get cash flow. But the more money we put into property, the less our return is. So it's important for us as investors to make sure that the property pays us now, in my opinion. I mean, there's no point in us doing that. I mean, there are circumstances where that could be an option, or you could fall into a property and it was making money and now it's not making money. It just needs to be readjusted. That's possible. But typically we want to come into a property with profitability. That's kind of the optimum we want in most circumstances. So if a property's not making money in for year one, I'm going to question why we're holding it longer than that. Okay, if property does not make profit in year one, not likely to make profit in subsequent years because expenses like tax, electricity go up, match increase in rent, so you never get ahead. This is true, absolutely. Does this calculator take into account a building that would need a major repair like a new roof? Great question, Ed. So repairs, what I want you to do is I want you to add them to purchase price. So if we had a $50,000 repair, I'd change this to $500,000, right? Because that's really what I'm purchasing it for, right? And a repair like that, Ed, you know, what you want to know really at the end of the day is what is retail? Well, you know, what do I need to do this property to get it in a retail state? In other words, everything is up to par. So if you had to fix the roof and that costs you, and some other things that cost you $50,000, Ed, I want you to put that in the total price, because we can't say that we're getting the property for $450 if we're putting $50,000 more in for the roof. Well, you know, for things that we got to fix up. How many investors that buy $1 million properties cash flow? I would say, Anna, none, almost none. No, I don't want to say none. I would say pretty close to none. Yeah, $1 million property is not going to cash flow. Why is a $1 million property not going to cash flow? Well, the reason is, as a rule of thumb, you need about a 1% per month to make it cash flow. So let's do that. Let's go $1 million. If it was $1 million, I would need 10,000 a month. So 10,000, I'd need 120,000. 120, that's million. 120, 1, 2, 3. 120,000 per month, per year, 10,000 a month to make this cash flow. You know, that's what I would need. Yeah, close to that for sure. Let's look down here. That's cash flowing, but these numbers are not accurate, so we'd have to fix these numbers. But you're looking at about 1% per month against the value of the property is a good indicator. So only profitable if it is a multi-unit? Nope. What do? Single-family homes, we use rent-to-own. That's why we do it, because single-family homes, in general, won't cash flow. They just won't cash flow. So you got to do something creative. So we got to do rent-to-own. Yeah, Dave's working on a rent-to-own right now. So, yeah, you can't. It's very tough almost all across Canada to make a single-family home profitable, renting it out. Yeah. You really, there's not a lot of value in ownership other than it's your house and you want to live there and you enjoy that, that's fine. But profitability-wise, there's not much profit in single-family homes as a rule. If you would have to be a commercial investor, so 6+ units, you can, really it doesn't, yeah, there's some truth to that. Commercial is going to give us those kind of opportunities, but at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter what kind of property is. It's really the income that determines everything. Now, what's great about when you start getting into those multi-units and those big commercial properties, the market typically values them the same way. They say, well, income should decide whether this is, you lost me? Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me? Oh, I don't know what happened. Okay. So typically, good. Typically, it's really a question of return on investment. We talk about this a lot. We go for that 10 cap rate, right? 10% return if we paid cash. It's 9 right now in this one. But if we did 10% cap rate, that allows us to use creative financing. And we want to be able to use creative financing because it's going to increase our return on investment. Does everybody understand that? The importance of that? Right? We go into deliberate debt so we can increase the return, right? That's what we need. But we can't do that with a property that has a 3% cap rate. If the standard cap rate, if the cap rate on a property is 3, there's no way, we can do any sort of creative financing to improve that, because any sort of carrying cost on a cap rate of 3 is going to have a negative cash flow as a rule. Yeah. Does that make sense to everybody when I say that? If a property has a cap rate of 3, which is a 3% return on value, right? If I paid cash for the property and it gave me a 3% return, I really couldn't, I couldn't finance it, and it would cash. I can't cash flow that property. Does everybody see that? Everybody understand that? Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah. Good. Good. So this is why, we need a 10 cap rate, because if we don't get a 10 cap rate, we can't use creative financing. If we can't use creative finance, we can't get a better return. Okay, so here's the thing I want you to keep in mind. Okay, so you're not going to find 10 cap rates on properties that are in retail state. Does everybody understand that? Like if a property's in retail state, it's on MLS, you're not going to get 10, because the standard cap rate for a retail property, like I said, in Canada, is sitting around 3 or 4%, like 3 or 4. So, if a property's in perfect condition, it's in retail state, then really there's no opportunity there. And really, Angie, if you're not, and I want to explain, repeat this, so important. If you're not providing a product, service, or solution, you don't deserve to get paid. We don't make money by buying properties. Buying a property is not special or unique or, anybody can buy a property off MLS. Anybody can. There's nothing special about that, okay? If you want to get paid in a real way, if you want to make money in a real way in real estate, you have to create or ultimately solve people's problems, and that's where the opportunity is. So Angie, cap rates at 10, are properties that are in distress, or sellers more specifically are in distress, and really we're looking for somebody who's run out of time and run out of money, and they need a solution and a way out, and we give them that way out. And for that, we grab a property that's a 10 cap rate. Does that answer your question, Angie? What we're learning is a specialized skill. Creative financing is a specialized skill. That's what we're learning. That's the opportunity. Yeah. That's the opportunity, and I'm glad you asked the question. That's the opportunity that we offer people that we do business with. So let's bring this to 450. Okay, 450,000. Now we already know this property doesn't cash flow. It's not going to work out for us. The reason it's showing cash flow now is because I increased the rent to some ridiculous amount, but it's more like 36,000 a year. That's 1,000 per unit, and so let's imagine that the property was 233, but this is what gives us the maximum offer price. Does everybody understand that? The maximum offer price for this property is 223,000. We really don't care what the list price is. The only reason we care what the list price is we want to see how far our price is, this price is right here, how far this price is away from the actual list price, right? So that's the only reason we want to know that. Other than that, there's limited value in their price. We need to tell them what it's worth. 37.8 in rent, hypothetically. Okay, you want to run? Let's run 37.8. Okay, 37.8. Okay, 37.8. Okay, 37.8, like that. Okay, if we run 37.8, a little bit better, right? But you got to remember that I changed the financing on this. I changed the financing on this to fit the coverage ratio. If you come down here, it just went up to 237. That's. So let me give you an example. If I change this to 237, the numbers are going to work, right? We're gonna see green here. And the GRM is just over 6. That's why it's red. But we see green because the property is at 237.4. It will actually make money. So let's change this to 3. and this to 10. And we see that, you know, we're still making money. It's still healthy. 10 cap rate, 627. Coverage ratio still rock solid. Excellent, 1.64. We see that we're making $257 per unit. This is a good deal, right? In this state, right? So let's imagine, let's do this. Let's go 285. Let's say it was 285. Okay, so 285, you know, we see that it doesn't quite make it. Still some good numbers here. Healthy numbers. You know, we look here and we see, well, what we'd like to see is 237.4. Let's look at that as our number. We start looking at we got to just change our financing around to you know, mimic the property, what it is, right? It's a residential property. We got interest rate, let's go 3 and 10 again. And we look and we see, okay, this property is gonna be fine. We're gonna make 256 on it. If we come down here, these are just, you know, income and expense ratios and stuff like that. Don't worry about that right now. We see here, look, we see first offer is 201 with VTB 225. So we're saying to the seller, look, we'll give you a cash offer at 271. And you see that that's 71% of list price, and with VTB it's 79% of list price. I could go here, I could change this to 90. It's automatically going to move that to 10. Okay, it's going to move it up 10. So I could go first offer is 90%, 213,660. That's 75 of list. With VTB, I can give you 100% of the price. 100%, yeah, 237 versus list. It's going to be 83% because that's against our price. 100% of this price and 83% of this price. Does everybody understand that? Right? That's what it's calculating, right? So we look here and we say, well, look, Mr. Seller, Mr. Smith, VTB with interest and principal, 47,800. Does anybody know where the 47,800 came from? Anybody want to guess? Okay, 47,800 came from right here. Right? We're gonna ask, you know, that first mortgage, 20%. Right? That's where that first mortgage is, 47,800. Because if we can get this 20%, the bank will give us the rest of it. Right? And it might be, we could go 10 and 10 if you wanted, just to show you an example. 10 and 10. If you come down here, it's changed to 23,740 because that's what the second mortgage is. Does everybody understand that? That's the second mortgage. That's why it's giving us the second mortgage. So if we come down here, we say, look, Mr. Seller, we'd like to, you know, VTB, we can give you a better price, 83% of the list price, and in fact, we're going to give you more than that. But let us break it down for you. The second mortgage is 23,740. It's a 5-year term. We can change that to 30 years. We're going to pay you, you know, 6%, and it's going to be, you know, $141 a month. That's what you're going to get a year, and that's what we're going to pay at the end of the term, right? At the end of the 5 years. Because after we pay this for 5 years, we still owe them $22,000, right? $70. Or, Mr. Seller, we can do this. We can go 23%, 23,740 for 5 years. It's amortized. Doesn't really matter because we're paying interest only. We're going to pay you 7% instead of 6%. We're going to pay you $138 a month. That's what you're going to get a year, and we're going to owe you $23,740, which is the same number as this number. Everybody see that? These two numbers are the same because we've only been doing interest-only payments. Okay, so we still owe them that in 5 years. And your total wealth accumulation, Mr. Smith, is this. With the VTB, interest and principal, we're gonna ask for a $40,000 discount. Is what it really comes down to. So 14.3% is the discount we're asking for. You'll get $244. And remember, he was asking for $285. We're gonna get him $244, even though the purchase price was $237. Does everybody understand that? Why that is? Does anybody have any questions about that? That's okay if you do. Remember that when we do a total wealth accumulation for seller, we're including all the interest that they're making from this VTB, right? These VTBs. So in the interest or principal, they make 244. If they just do interest only, they actually make a little bit more at 245 versus list price. That's a 39,000 and change discount. So we're actually only asking for a 13.4% discount below list price. Does everybody see that? Let's say you run with 30. Oh wait, we did that already. Okay. Does everybody see that? Okay, so watch this. I want to show you something. So I want to make sure everybody understands that because I'm going to do something here. Everybody see that? Okay, remember, see these numbers, right? If you don't understand it, you're going to be lost probably in the next thing I do. So watch what happens. Watch what happens when I increase the VTB. So instead of 10%, let's make this 70%. Let's make this 30%. Watch what happens. Everybody see what happened? What happened? Tell me what happened. What happened for the seller? Who can see it? What happened to for the seller? Yeah, they're getting more money. They actually make more money the more of the VTB they get. Now we're only asking for a 9.5% discount and an 8% discount under interest only. Did everybody see that? Let me just reverse that. Okay. So you see here, the original VTB was only 10%. It's 10%. That's all we're asking for VTB, say. He makes 244 and 245. But if I change that to 70, 30, like this, he actually makes more money. Do you see that? Does everybody see that? He gets more money. So watch this. Let's go 60, right? Oh, hold on. 60 and 40. Look now. We're asking for a 5% discount, right? If the guy's willing to go 50-50, what happens? Right? Look, he's almost getting list price. Does everybody see that? He's almost getting list price. This is list price, 285. He's getting 278. Yeah. So the key here, though, right? I want to keep something in mind, right? We have to make sure that we're making the money, enough money to finance this extra amount for the seller. So we want to make sure. Now look, we're asking him to finance 118,000. We're not gonna offer necessarily this percentage. It might be lower, right? We might do 5 and 6 to ensure that we're profitable. But at the end of the day, there is opportunity. There's lots of opportunity to get the seller what he wants. There's not. We can do that. You got to remember that the seller's getting here. We're offering 10%. That's gonna still bring us in an average profit of 151. Now we're talking about giving the seller 6 and 5 based on what they want to do. Okay, but I just want you to understand, that when we're getting a VTB done, the seller benefits big time from that. Big time. It's not a little benefit. It's big time. So don't be afraid to ask for VTBs. You're doing a service. You're doing something for the seller. That's important. Does anybody have any questions? Is it a good idea to present the numbers using this spreadsheet to potential JV partner, not from our cost or seller? You can do that, Anna. I mean, I probably wouldn't give them. You can use the numbers. I mean, the sheet itself might overwhelm them, but the numbers, you want to maybe just pro-form the numbers as on an investor sheet and explain this is what it is. The simplest thing you can do, Anna, for an investor is explain, look, this is the amount, this is your return. This is how I'm going to be able to give you the return. And then you show them, the deal. You wouldn't have to show them all this creative financing thing initially. You wouldn't need to show them all this. What you need to show them is evidence that you have a property that's cash flowing and that you can actually pay them their return. And you'd be shocked to know, Anna, that most investors, don't even, the novice investor doesn't even ask if you can pay it. They just assume you're going to pay it. So you wouldn't even have to show evidence that they can make money. Let me tell you something. If somebody comes up to you and says, I have an investment opportunity, you need to make sure that they make money too. Why? Who can tell me why? Why do they need me to make money too? Repeat business, that's good. What else? So they give us money again, good. What else? Win-win, yep. Credibility, good. Share the wealth, good. Positive referral, good. Share the wealth, good. So let me give you one more. Satisfied customer. Let me tell you something. It's unsustainable. It's unsustainable. If you and your partners are not making money, it's unsustainable. If you and your investors are not making money, or your investor's not making money and you are not making any money, your investor is, that's unsustainable business model. Does everybody understand? It's unsustainable. Everybody needs to get paid. Everybody needs to make money. And it includes all the things you just listed, which are wonderful. They're amazing, and you're absolutely right. Ultimately, on the business side, you can't run a business with other people, with partners and realtors and mortgage brokers and the whole team. They need to get paid. It's unsustainable to work with you or work with someone that won't allow you to profit. Does everybody understand that? You have to be able to profit, and you have to make sure that the people you're with profit. They have to profit, or you can't repeat the cycle. Is everybody clear on that, right? When is the best time to introduce the idea of VTB to the seller? After you get the property under contract or before? So good question. Let me say this. There's two options. You can get a property under contract first without any complicated, VTB or any creative financing initially, and then try to deal with the VTB after. You could do that. I think that there's some advantages because the seller, becomes more committed to finding a solution if you want creative financing. I think there's nothing wrong with introducing the idea of creative financing to the seller initially, especially if creative financing is it has to be done for you to be able to get the deal, right? Because we want to make sure that the financing, on the financing end, we have a plan, right, that we can finance just to ensure that that's not going to hold us up from the close of the sale. If the property fits our criteria, right? I mean, if it doesn't, then it doesn't. But we want to know that we can do that kind of stuff all in one go. It's going to be uninterrupted. Really, at the end of the day, if it's a good deal, we don't want it to get away. And to do that, we need to run our numbers and do all the things that we have to do and vet the deal and use our team and make sure that we're doing the right things. We don't want any property added to our portfolio that's not making money. Okay? Any questions about this sheet here? So for my new people, please play around with it, have fun. Fun maybe for some of you. Some of you maybe a little overwhelmed, but that's okay. We're going to go over it. I promise you several times, again and again. Remember now, if your 6 key indicator sheet shows no opportunity, don't bother don't bother going into this sheet with it, because this is much deeper, right? The other one just assumes a 35% expense. If it doesn't, give you that opportunity, then it's not worth, bringing it over here. Okay? Does everybody see that? Any questions before I go away from this sheet? No. Okay, that's good. Okay. So I see a couple people typing. Are we good? Okay. All right. So here we go. So I just want to show you a couple things, okay? So let's do this. Let's go. Tark, I'm going to bring you in. Sorry, my friend. I just want to do a real quick thing. We're running a little bit longer. Hope that's okay with everybody. We appreciate you, Tark,
No
hanging
worries.
around really a lot. Thank you very much, my friend. And maybe we can split up yours this week and next week. So thank you. Okay, let me just show something real quick.
Oh, good.
Here. Do this, and I want to show this. Okay, so as a process, what's the first thing we should be looking at? So as a process, we see that, I need at least, right? It's not tough to get it. Okay.
Loud and clear. Testing 1, 2, 3. Sam, you got to turn on your speaker.
Yes? Really? That's funny. I can't hear. That's great. Okay. Super loud. All right. Okay. So let's look at it. So step 1. Okay. What do? Well, we have the income, right? Gross income. Okay, from a property. And what else do we have? We have purchase price. What can we do with these things? Gross income and purchase price. What can we do? Does anybody remember? What can we do? Okay, we want to make money in the buy. GRM, yep. So GRM. So the first thing I want to do is GRM. So GRM, gross rent multiplier. Okay, so I haven't done anything really. Nothing really has happened yet. So I'm going to do the gross rent multiplier, and what do I find out? I find out that the property is either an opportunity or not. So I want you to understand. So gross rent multiplier. So I take, if the property is 100K, right? It's 100,000, and the gross income, right? Rents are 10,000, 10K. Okay. The gross rent multiplier is what? Gross rent multiplier. Remember, this divided by this. That's gross rent multiplier. The GRM is what? Okay, there we go. So if it's a 10, if the gross rent multiplier is a 10, what's that telling you? Is this a good deal or no? Yes or no? Good deal? Okay, we have a couple people. Good. Not great. Okay, so 10's not great. 10's not great. Why? We'd like to see a what? Yeah, we like to see a 6. That's what we'd like to see, the gross rent multiplier at 6. Because this 10K is really the gross income. We haven't done the expenses yet. That's just gross rent. So we're not actually going to get 10K. We know that. So a 10 gross rent multiplier is probably not going to be a buy and hold, right? But what could it be? If it's a single family home, what could it be? It could be a what? A rent to own, right? Right? So remember this when we do this. Let's do another whiteboard. Hold on. If we do okay, so remember, let me just take this. Hold on 1 second. Make this big again. Okay, so a 10 cap, what can we do? Well, 10 cap, we can do a buy and hold. Everybody got that? Buy and hold. We can do a 10 cap and hold. I don't like that. buy and hold. Everybody got that? So 10 cap, buy and hold. Okay? A 7 to 9, what can I do with a 7 to 9 cap? You know, a 7 to 9, I might be able to take a 7 to 9 up to a 10, right? But if I can't, I'm now looking at a rent to own, okay? If I'm a 4 to, I'm just simplifying this, from 4 to 7, what can I do? Well, 4 to 7 cap rate. Now I can only do maybe a wholesale, right? Or a flip. Okay? Now I might be able to do a flip up here too at this cap rate, but let's just say wholesale and flip are between 4 and 7. Does everybody see? So if you have a 10 cap rate, you can do all three. 10 cap rate, I can do buy and hold, rent to own, wholesale, or flip. If I have a 7 to 9 cap rate, I can do a rent to own, a wholesale, and a flip. If I have a 4 to 7 cap rate, I can do a wholesale and a flip. Does everybody understand that? Does that make sense to everybody? So the cap rate is pretty important. Obviously, it's pretty important for us to understand. So that's why we want that cap rate to be as high as possible, give us the most opportunity. Now, this is what I want you to understand. This is why I don't want you to waste time on property. So what do? First thing we do is we run GRM. Okay? So if we run the GRM, and the GRM is at a 10, you know, that's going to be tough for us to make money. So, you know, can we make the GRM work better for us? Can we make it, you know, a little bit better? Yeah, we could. At 10, I would tell you at 10 and lower, let's run the numbers on it in the 6 key indicators, right? But over 10, I don't want you to waste your time. Does everybody understand that? Right? Does everybody understand why? So if you run, and look at that. Just the gross rent, just the gross income and the purchase price, that'll tell you a lot about the property, right? Immediately, anything over a 10, forget about it. Don't even bother looking at it, right? We don't want to waste time. Does everybody understand that, right? Everybody understands, yes? Good. Okay. So, if the cap rate is obviously below 10, next step would be to what? Run the 6 key indicators. Everybody understand that, right? Understand that, sorry? So then we run the 6 key indicators. If we run the 6 key indicators, let's go to the 6 key indicators. So let's do this again. Okay, so we have another whiteboard. So we check GRM. So GRM, that's step 1. Need 10 plus. Then we go to step 2, which is what? We do 6 key indicators. Okay, and that's going to give you 6 key indicators. It's going to give you, remember, cap rate. It's going to give you cash on cash return. It's going to give you all those indicators, right? So if a property has a cap rate of, and we looked at it, right? 4 is pretty low. Like 4 is the very bare minimum. But you know, I would you know say that you know, in the 4 range, if it's 4 or higher, what do? We can now run the cash flow sheet. Okay? Does everybody understand the steps now? Step 1 is to run GRM, then 6 indicators. If it's 4 or higher for a cap rate, the cash flow sheet is the next step that we take. Now let's spend some time on it. Now the 4, I'll be honest with you, the 4 is kind of low. I'd rather you guys I'd rather you guys spend some time maybe on a 6 or higher now that I'm looking at it, because 4, I don't want you to waste your time. But initially, if you want to run 4s, that's okay. It'll maybe give you some experience on using the sheet. I want you to see why a 4 is tough. It's tough to work with a 4. A 6, we might be able to do a wholesale with or a flip. We'd have to look at the retail value in the area. Okay? Now, when I say you can do a wholesale with a property that's, you know, a 4 or a 6, does anybody know what we need to make that work? You know, how could we wholesale it? Well, wholesale implies that we've gotten a discount off you know, on the property, right? So the way wholesale works in this case, hide that. The way wholesale works in this case, let me explain, is that if you can get, yeah, sign it for sure. But if you can get a property under contract that has, say, a 6 cap rate, and the normal cap rate in the area is 4, then you got a shot. Does everybody understand? So if the cap rate's 6, you got it for 6, and the normal cap rate in the area for that type of property is a 4, then you can make money. Does everybody understand? But if you have a 6 cap rate and the normal cap rate in that area is a 6, there's no wholesale deal there. Does everybody understand that, right? Everybody understands why, yes? Okay, good. You need, yeah, exactly. You need a better cap rate, you know, to offer, you know, if there's a lower cap rate as a general, you know, for that market, for that area, for that neighborhood. Okay, so that's as far as I want to go, because it's already 22, and I definitely want my friend Tarek to come in and start sharing his knowledge. Tarek, I'm hoping that you're still able to do that. Can you spend 20 more minutes with us and allow us to better understand financing? Can we do that now?
Yeah, I'm here, Sam. Can you hear me?
You there, Tarek? There we go. So everybody can hear Tarek? Yes?
You gotta put on your speaker. Sammy, you gotta mute your speaker. Sorry, you gotta turn on your speaker. Sammy, I'm talking now. Can you hear me? Sam, we should both be able to talk at the same time.
Your mic is muted.
Sammy, can you hear me now?
I do that. There we go. You can all hear Tarek, yes?
Yeah, they can all hear me, Sam. Can you hear me?
Both are good.
Sam, can you hear me?
Yeah. Okay, Tarek, I can't hear you. I don't know exactly why I can't hear you, but they can hear you, which is great. So, do you want to just let me know when you want me to flip the slide over, and I will? Turn on your speaker. My speaker is on. Yours is muted. Why is yours muted? Now it's not muted.
Oh, my mic is not muted.
That's great.
Is your speaker muted, Sam?
Turn on your speaker. I did.
Choose your speaker.
So Tarek is good. You're talking now, I assume? What speaker did you choose? Okay, let me try that.
There. Okay, is that better?
Yeah, but turn down the volume on your speaker, Sam.
But Sam doesn't hear you.
Sam,
so Tarek, you can...
turn.
No, I still can hear you, my friend.
You have to turn the
volume
on your speaker.
Well, you know what? Let me try something. All right.
Is the rest of the slide. Okay, I think in the meantime, while Sam's figuring out what he's got to do, we can go ahead and get started. Just for the sake of time, because there's a lot to cover here. I mean, I can speak about these 6 topics for hours. So maybe what we can do is give just for the guys that have some questions right now that are looking for some answers of the 6 different topics here under mortgage financing. What do you guys want to talk about right off the bat? And there should be a second slide that kind of dives into more detail of each of these categories. Mortgage programs. Programs 5 and 6, mortgage underwriting. Okay. Why don't we get into underwriting then, just for the sake of time, and the 5 C's. Okay. So the most important thing are the 5 C's of credit, the 5 C's of lending. We call them the 5 C's of credit or lending, and we'll talk about mortgage underwriting. But let me just type something for Sam so we can get us the second slide. And then we can get started. Let me text him as well. Okay, so the 5 C's of credit are basically you've got 3 that are income based and 2 that are character based. So the first 3, which are income based, are capital, capacity, and collateral. The other 2 that are character based are character and credit worthiness. Those are the 5 areas that lenders look at before they'll make any decisions on lending you any sort of money. So if we get into each one of those. C for collateral. I mean, collateral is just that. It's, what do you have as assets against what it is you're borrowing. Capacity is your ability to pay back the loan. Repeat those, sure. So the next slide actually has them listed. So, and I'll make sure Sam gives you guys a copy of them. Here they are here. So the 5 C's of lending are capital, collateral, capacity, character, and credit worthiness. So under section 3 there. So we'll get into each one. The most important one is GDSR, TDSR. Those are the ratios that the banks look at before they're able to determine whether or not they're able to kind of move forward on the loan. So GDSR is just a simple ratio. It's it basically boils down to a combination of what your mortgage payment is, your property tax, and heat. So as long as your GDSR is under 32%, there's a good chance that you'll get approved for the mortgage. Well, I mean, this is one part of it, but this is the main thing that lenders look at is your ability to service the debt. So yes, capital is required. You got to have some collateral. Your character has to be good, meaning you're not jumping from job to job. Your employment is stable. Credit worthiness, you have to have decent credit. But the most important thing is your ability to service the debt. So what is your income? What kind of expenses do you have? And is there enough excess to cover a mortgage, property tax, and heat? Those are the three numbers that make up GDSR. So as long as at the end of the month your mortgage payment with the property tax and the heat is less than 32% of your income, you can move on to the next ratio, which is TDSR, which takes the first three that we talked about and then just adds in things like credit cards, lines of credit, loans, car payments, things like that. With that number, the maximum a lender usually likes to see is 44%. So as long as you're not spending more than 44% of your gross income on those areas, you should be able to move forward on the deal. Bearing in mind, everything else also has to be in order. So your credit score has to be above 620, some lenders 640. You've got to have at least 2 years of income. Sometimes they'll make the exception if you started a new job 6 months ago and you're able to show steady income over those 6 months, they may take that into consideration as well. Collateral, we've talked about basically, what other assets do you have? Capital is the down payment. So, are you putting down a minimum of 5%, et cetera, et cetera? There's a question here. If you are buying property through corporation, okay, so with corporations, it's a whole different game. So, I mean, if we're not talking about commercial lending here, we're just talking about residential, but through a corporation, it's a little bit different. And,
let me jump in there, Tarek.
That's not.
Sure.
Yeah,
so
sure. Go ahead.
Corporations, I want you to direct, the corporation questions, obviously to our accountant. But corporations, typically, you're going to hold the note. The corporation can be the holder of the property, but the loan itself is going to be held in your name until your corporation has some history. And that's something that's better explained by our accountants and those who create our corporations, the lawyers that create them. Does everybody understand that? So you're holding the note on this. Just as a rule, you just hold the note. The ownership of that property is where the liability is. It's not the note. It's not the loan. It's not the problem. That's not where the risk is. Nobody slips and falls on a loan, right? But they can slip and fall at a property, and that's where the exposure comes in the lawsuit. Okay, does everybody see the distinction? We good? Okay. All right, Tarek, I'm going to pass it back to you, my friend.
Okay, so does anybody have any questions regarding the 5 C's of credit? And we'll provide the numbers in another presentation as well, just so you've got them. But it's basically 32% GDSR, 42% TDSR, right? So if those numbers pass, you're able to move forward, okay? So that's just considered. So that's last. Regarding mortgage underwriting, so this is an area that's much contested. So let's just say, for example, your numbers are aligned, you've got decent credit, system says that you're able to move forward. Now there's an underwriter that's going to look at the deal and they're going to look for flaws in the deal, right? So they're looking for anything that any kinks or anything that doesn't seem accurate. So the biggest area of contestant, I'm going to say, is income verification, right? So how do you prove you're making $80,000 a year or $100,000 a year or whatever it may be, right? So typically, a lender will ask for either your last 2 notice of assessments, which is basically your income tax return, and they will average the last 2 years to provide a number going forward. So let's say year one, let's say in 2016 you made 100,000, 2017 you made 140. They're going to average it over the 2 years. They're going to say 120. 120 is your income. They're also going to ask for updated pay stubs to show that you're still making that sort of money. Maybe over the last 2 years, maybe you found a new job recently. So they're going to also ask for either a pay stub or a bank statement showing the money going into your account. It all depends on the lender. Some lenders are just going to ask you for notice of assessments. Some will ask you for notice of assessments and recent pay stubs, et cetera, et cetera. That's fine and dandy if you're, a salaried employee, but things get dicey when you're a commissioned employee, when you're trying to use other sorts of income, such as child benefit tax, commissions, things like that. But there's always programs available based on your predicament, right? So if you're somebody who's let's say a construction worker, for example. So you're in the construction industry, you make $80,000 a year, but you've got a lot of write-offs, and you're only declaring $30,000 or $40,000 of income. Well, there's programs available for people like that. So depending on the lender you go to, they'll chances are they'll be able to accommodate you as long as you've got other things in line. So as long as you've got more than 5% down payment, so maybe you got to put down a minimum of 10 or 20%. And maybe your credit score has to be higher than the minimum of 620 or 640. But the underwriter is going to they are going to inspect your notice of assessments. They'll inspect your pay stubs. If there's a variance in the pay stubs, they're going to ask questions why. Another one that I butt my head a lot with is the down payment. So where's the down payment coming from? You got to show proof that the down payment's coming from your own income. Right? So if it's borrowed income or if it's a gift, you got to show letters. If it's borrowed income, they won't actually accept it. So you can't go borrow money on a credit card and use that as a down payment. Let's say you did. Let's say, for example, let's say you're buying a house and a few months before you close, you decide to borrow the money for down payment. If the lender sees that, they're not going to allow it to move forward. So you have to have either your own money or gifted money using a gift letter as down payment. It cannot be borrowed. I had one guy, for example, take money off his line of credit, take some money off his credit cards, throw it into his bank account. He showed proof of down payment in his bank account. So the proof was, here you go. Here's my bank statements. There's $20,000 down payment. That's my down payment. Well, where did this money come from? Well, it was transferred from my other account. Well, what's the other account? Well, the other account's a line of credit. Well, you can't borrow money as a down payment. Things like that, right? So those are all things that you have to be concerned with, and hopefully the lender that you're or the advisor that you're dealing with can advise you of these things, because you're not going to deal with an underwriter directly. So the underwriter is somebody who sits in an office, takes the file once an advisor has passed it down the line, and they're the ones who kind of approve it, right? So they're looking for these things, whereas the advisor is not. Property assessments also under the mortgage underwriting, so they'll usually ask for either an MLS listing or they may ask for an appraisal. Okay, credit score analysis, they're going to look at your credit score. The score doesn't tell them everything. So just as a little bit of homework, if you guys want to visit some of these sites that are listed under Section 4, creditkarma.ca and Borrowell, these are new. It's not that they're new, but recently these sites have allowed Canadians to look up their credit without paying any fees and without hitting their credit score. Credit Karma is for TransUnion, Borrowell is for Equifax. You're able to look at both of your credit reports using these sites, and they're both free. And neither of them.
So someone's asking about using hard money. So Tarik's talking about the standard lenders from banks and some of the A lenders. So there's other lenders that will allow you to use creative financing and are not a stickler about where the money came from. Obviously, they might have the stipulation of it has to be there for 90 days. Other lenders will allow you to do that. What I'd like you to consider is, obviously, we can borrow the money to purchase the whole property and then refinance it through the bank, and then we're treated completely different, right? We're an owner now. Refinancing now is an option after we've been seasoned with the property. So whatever the lender wants, you have to fulfill the commitment of the lender, right? So if fulfilling the commitment or what the lender needs to give you the money is better suited after the purchase, then that's how we would approach it. Okay, does that make sense? So
there's a question from Julian, and it's a good question. funds from JV partners would need to sit in my account for 90 days. So as long as the money's been there for more than 90 days, 90 days minimum, they won't ask any questions. So let's say, for example, 95 days ago, you transferred the money from a credit card, and 95 days ago, you transferred the money from a line of credit. Well, the money's in your account, then you've satisfied that requirement. They're not going to ask where the money came from as long as it's been there for the last 90 days.
Everybody, if I could, sorry, Tarek. I want to remind everybody, and keep this in mind, they want to give you the money. They really, really want to give you the money. It's really a question of how do I give you the money, right? So I want you to keep that in mind. They're really not trying to make it difficult. The lender wants to give you the money. It's just a question of can you meet the requirements that have been mandated to them on giving you the ability to give you that money.
Yeah, they got to cover their butt, right? So at the other end, the underwriter, if there's a default, somebody's going to be inspecting his work, right? So as long as he's got all his T's crossed and I's dotted, he's fine. But he wants to lend you the money as well because he gets paid for it.
Right? That's right. I don't know what that means.
So, sounds like you can hear me, Sam?
I can hear you great, actually. That's awesome.
Perfect. Okay. So one other thing that we didn't touch on, and you brought up a good point, Sam. So with the private lenders, so under Section 1 there, we've got the mortgage lenders. So you've got your banks, which are your Tier 1 or your Tier A lending institutions, credit unions as well, insurance companies, which a lot of people didn't know. Insurance companies are in the mortgage business as well. So Great-West Life, London Life, Manulife, they're really competitive in their rates. And then you've got your mortgage brokers who will shop it out to A lenders, B lenders, and they usually have access to private lenders as well. So I mean, there's a lot of options for you guys if you're looking for money. If you want the best rates, you're going to want to deal with your bank. You've got a relationship established with them. If you don't meet their criteria, then you're probably better off going to a mortgage broker, who can then either go to a B lender or a private lender. And again, depends on what the deal looks like, right? So a lot of it has to do with the second option here, or the second section where we talk about mortgage insurers. So A lenders and B lenders are all mandated by the rules by the insurance companies, right? So you've got something called default insurance, and if you're unable to cover your mortgage, default insurance kicks in. So anytime you're paying less than 20% down payment on a property, you have to have insurance in place. Otherwise, the lender's not going to lend you the money. And they want that insurance in place, even if they have to pay for it themselves, which they'll do after 20% down payment. So it's not like you're not getting default insurance with your deal. Lenders are always going to want default insurance, but they're not going to necessarily charge the client. So if you're putting down 20% or more, you don't have to cover the default insurance fee. If you're paying under 20%, you have to cover the default insurance fee, which can be as high as 4.5% down on the entire deal, right? So if you're buying a $200,000 house and you want to put down 5%, you could be looking at anywhere between $3,000 and $6,000 in fees for default insurance. Whereas if you're putting down 20%, you don't have to pay any fees, and then the lender will cover the fee, which might be around 1% or less. The lender wants that default insurance because for them, they factor it into the pricing, right? They factor it into the deal. They know that they're going to give up 1% to guarantee that 100% coverage, right? Okay, guys, I've done a lot of talking at my end. Can we get some questions? Any other areas? Can you clarify the difference between GDSR and TDSR? Sure. So the GDSR is your gross debt service ratio. They only factor in the mortgage payment, the property tax, condo fees if there are any, and then heat, which is usually about $100 a month, right? So add up those numbers, and they cannot be greater than 32% of your gross income. TDSR is your total debt. Total debt meaning every debt obligation you have. Credit cards, lines of credit, loans, car payments, student loans, mortgage payments, anything that's anywhere where you've got a credit facility. We're not talking Rogers and Telus and things like that and cable. It's just anything that you've borrowed from a bank or from a lending institution. And they're going to factor in, not necessarily your minimum payment, but 3% of your balance monthly. So for example, let's say we got two clients walking into a bank, both trying to apply for a $100,000 mortgage, both make $100,000 a year. If client B's got $30,000 in credit card debt. Well, we know that 3% on $30,000, we're looking at $900 a month in payments, right? So he's got to pay $900 a month in payments to that credit card. That's what we calculated it as. Well, that's $900 that he's not able to spend on a mortgage, right? So TDSR includes everything, right? It includes all the debt, whereas GDSR is just the first few there that we talked about, okay? And what are the calculations? So the calculations are just, so Sam wrote them down there, 32 and 42. So, and it's 32% of your gross income and 42% of your gross income. So tally up all those numbers, and as long as they're not greater than 32 and 42, you've kind of, you've met the capacity portion of the 5 C's of lending. Right? Okay. Been told that if you're trying to finance a property with 5 or more units, the financial institution will assess the capacity of the property, necessarily the individual or corporation. Is that accurate? Yeah, that's true as well. So they'll always want to look at, well, I mean, if you're going more than 4 units and you're up to 5 units now, the chances are they'll consider it a commercial property. And now things are different. So it all depends on the lender. Some might say 5 is commercial, and now it's a whole different deal. But I mean, I can't say that they'll only look at the individual or the corporation. Chances are they'll factor in everything, right? Again, it all depends on the lender. I'm looking at an RTO or yeah, so the 32 and 42 is the A lender. We're not talking about the B lender or the C lender or private money. So if you're looking for the best rate, no fees, no commissions, 32, 42 is what the tier A banks go by, right? I mean, I've seen exceptions made in the past. So the 32, 42 rule, if everything else is great or outstanding, or you're putting down more down and you're at 33 and 45, you can ask for an exception. So those aren't necessarily, drawing a line in the sand and you can't go over it, but that's typically where they want you to be, right? Are there lenders in the team that lend up to 80%? Just checking. Well, most lenders will lend, up to 95%. I'm not quite understanding the question there. Ian. Right, so you can put down 5% down payment. The bank's lending you the other 95%. Any other questions, guys? I know we kind of rushed through some of this stuff. We can get into more details in our next session. A mortgage, do you recommend a fixed or variable? That question, it depends. Like right now, I'd definitely say fixed, just because we've got, we've had 3 interest rate hikes in the last 9 months and 2 more forecasted. So the rates are going up, every few weeks. I see the rates just going up a little bit every once in a while. So I mean, at this point, I would definitely suggest that you go with the fixed. But that's the first time in 7 years that I've recommended fixed over variable, because there was no hint of any rate hikes, up until 9 months ago. So I've always recommended variable, but now at this point, it doesn't make sense, especially because the spread between variable and fixed is so thin. Right? You're not finding large spreads between the two. On a variable, can they still put you on a term contract? So variable is not, when we talk about variable and fixed, those don't impact term, right? So a term is 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 year, 7 year, 10 year. And then the rate can be fixed or variable. Fixed meaning this is your rate for the term. Variable meaning this is your rate for the term. Variable rate mortgages are usually for 5 years, right? Sometimes they'll have a 1 year open. So there's another term that's been tossed around a lot, is open and closed. What's the difference between an open mortgage and a closed mortgage? So you've got open and closed. You've got fixed and variable. right? So an open mortgage just means you're able to pay it off at any time without penalty. A closed mortgage means you can't pay it off early, and if you do, if you have to, you're going to be paying a penalty. So an open mortgage usually has a higher rate because the bank cannot make a predictable income stream. So if I did a 5 year open, and people don't typically buy 5 year open mortgages, and few lenders offer them. 1 year open is pretty popular. So somebody who's looking to flip a house will go into a 1 year open, and he might pay 3 or 4% or even 5% versus a 5 year fixed at 319, just because they don't have to pay a penalty to break it. A variable mortgage and a fixed rate mortgage, to get out of it, you're going to have to pay some sort of penalty, whether it be an interest rate differential or a minimum 3 months interest. So they'll find some way to penalize you. So just to reiterate, an open mortgage is a mortgage that allows you to pay it off with no penalty. A closed mortgage is one that doesn't allow you to do that. It doesn't allow you to pay it off without having a penalty. And then a variable rate mortgage just means the rate is variable over the term. Closed means the rate is not variable; it's fixed for the term. And then terms, they range from 1 year.
Maybe Tariq, you can talk a little bit about because we're getting folks are just getting it's 11:08 p.m. Eastern, so we're going to wrap up in the next 7 minutes, and hopefully maybe you can join us next week, and maybe just a couple more points that you want to share with the group. But just a quick mention maybe of porting a mortgage or assuming a mortgage.
Okay, so that's a good point, Sam. So so when you're porting a mortgage, you're porting your existing mortgage from one property to the other. Not only are you porting the mortgage, but you're also porting your default insurance. So let's say, for example, you bought your first house, and then 2 years into the 5 year mortgage, you found a bigger property, a better property. Your wife wants to upgrade. Well, you don't necessarily have to close out that mortgage and get a new one. You can actually pick up the mortgage, take it to the new property, and then add some new money to the deal. So I did a deal like that just recently. So the new house is $500,000. The old house was $300,000. So they took the $300,000, moved it to the new house, added an additional $200,000 at a new rate, and blended the two. So the guy ended up having $300,000 mortgage at $259,000, and then $200,000 of new money at $319,000, and they blended it together, and they gave him that rate for the balance of his 5 year, which was he's got 2 years left on it. The advantage of doing that is, A, you don't have to reapply. B, you have to reapply for the new money, but for the money that you've got, you don't have to. You have to qualify to have the new money, obviously. But the advantage is you don't have to pay CMHC fees again. You just pay a top up. So that default insurance that you're paying 3 or 4% on, that's just a top up. It's a top up for the new money. You're not paying a penalty to close out the mortgage. Mortgages are portable. You're able to move them from one property to the next. And again, lots of advantages to doing that, right? You're not having to pay fees and things like that. There's a couple questions here, and the penalty would not be more than once. Better fixed for 5 years with low rates or 7 years with higher rate? Depends on, you got to be an economist to answer that question. It depends on where you think rates are going, over the next 5 years versus the next 7. Hard to say, right? It's a gamble both ways. And the penalty will be not more than 3 months. Penalties can be greater than 3 months. They can take the interest rate difference between the rate that you got and the current rate and multiply that by the balance of your term. So if you're in a 5 year mortgage and in year one, you want to get out of it, well, let's say a year later, rates are at 3.5%, and when you got your mortgage, they're at 2.5%, you would be stuck paying a 1% difference over the course of 4 years as a penalty. Can you port a mortgage to a lower property and keep the difference? Yes, you can. So you can port your mortgage over to the new property and keep the difference, absolutely. Now, mind you, you're going to be paying a penalty for the amount of mortgage that you're breaking, right? So if you're downsizing and your mortgage goes from $300,000 to $200,000, then you're paying a penalty on that $100,000 that you're terminating, right?
And Tariq, do we break the mortgage when we port? No, right? We're not breaking the mortgage, so that's the advantage, right? We don't break it, and we have no penalties.
But if you're porting with a decrease, then there is a portion that you're breaking early, that you
But
would
the
be
original
penalized on.
example with the 300 to 500, if we took the whole 300 in a port, we would not be breaking the mortgage, so there would be no penalties, correct? Yep. Okay.
Correct.
And
That's correct.
just quickly about assuming mortgages. Say so I'm selling a property, I have a mortgage on it, you're buying it from me. Can you assume the mortgage? Yeah.
If it's assumable, if the mortgage is assumable, then yes. So if it's assumable, basically all I have to do is qualify, and I assume it. I take it over as is. Again, that's an advantage. If I'm selling a house and I have an assumable mortgage, and let's say I've got 2 years left on my 5 year, and rates 3 years ago obviously are much better than what they are today, then that's an advantage. That's a good selling option, right? I mean, that's a good selling feature. So if I can get myself 2 years left on a 5 year at 2.5% versus the new mortgages, which are 3% on a 2 year term, and that's a
And
good selling
again,
feature.
we're not breaking,
So yeah,
right?
the mortgage
And
has to
again,
be
we're not
assumable.
breaking the mortgage when we assume.
That's right. So from the
Right.
perspective of the seller, he's not paying any penalties, which is good for them, and it's good for the buyer
Lower rate.
because
Yeah.
obviously they're getting a better
Okay.
rate.
So we're
Yeah.
gonna wrap up. Any last
Good
minute
question.
questions? Tark, can you join us next week? Is that possible? That might be tough.
Yeah,
Look at your schedule. Yeah, I
that's fine.
appreciate
Yeah.
that. Okay, so last couple questions. We're gonna run for another 2 minutes. So anything else anybody wants to ask? Because we're gonna wrap up for the day, for the night. We good? All right. If everybody's good, please type in yes or Y. Yeah, it is very good info. Yeah, really appreciate your time, Tark. It's always great to better understand
No worries.
financing and what we can do. Okay, so Tark hopefully is going to join us.
Yeah, and feel free
Yeah.
to visit those websites, guys. The Credit Karma and Borwell, they're free. They give you an idea of where you're at, shows you every credit facility you have, and your history in paying them.
Okay, so if you have any additional questions for financing, general questions, you can bring them to next week's call, and Tark will join us. Anybody who's working on any real estate deals, or wanna maybe work with Tark on some stuff, you can reach him directly and ask those questions. But I want you to understand something. For general financing questions, I want them done here, okay? When we're reaching out to Power Team members, we want to utilize their services. So if you're interested in his contact for further information, and that's totally up to you. It's you have to decide if Tarek's a good fit for you. He works with me. He's excellent. I'm not endorsing him for anybody. I'm just saying he's my guy, and he's outstanding as an individual. You have to evaluate him for yourself, just so everyone's clear. Okay, so Tarek, is it okay if you just throw up your email and again, I want you to keep in mind, folks, I don't want you to call Tarek and bombard him with general questions. That's what these calls are for. That's what we do these. This is more specifically getting his assistance with actual activity and deals. And Tarek, did you mention, and my apologies because my sound wasn't in and out, did you mention all the different things that you do?
No, so I mean, basically, I'm a financial advisor. So I do anything financial services related, from investments to mortgages to insurance as well, like life insurance and health insurance. But my specialty is investments and lending more than anything
Okay,
else.
great.
That's where I spend most of my time.
Just those of you who are set up in corporations with shareholders, Tarek also works with setting up shareholder agreements. Well, not shareholder agreements, but the insurance on the shareholder agreement. Correct, Tarek? Okay, so
Yes, correct.
if that's your situation, that might be something that you would want to look at with your advisor or with an advisor concerning, making sure that your shareholder agreement is insured, and that's something that you would want to work with your lawyer. So,
And just to answer Steve, yeah, we finance all across Canada. So so Freedom 55 has offices in every major city across Canada. So we do most of our deals through Great-West Life, Canada Life, London Life. Sometimes I'll use Manulife as well. Sometimes I'm sending deals to mortgage brokers and private lenders in other provinces as well. Basically, when you bring a deal to me, I'll either do it myself or I'll put you in the right direction. I'll steer you in the right
Okay,
direction.
we're gonna wrap up for the night. Sierra, Wilbert, I'm gonna get you contact this weekend. Okay, just reach out to me for the U.S. specifically in the Indianapolis area. Okay, I have somebody in mind. I'm just gonna double check and we'll be good. Okay, good. All right, we are done, folks. Great day, great evening. I want to thank you again, Tark, for sharing your time with us, and love that you can join us, and
You're very welcome.
for the great information. And again, keep hunting, folks. Keep looking for deals. Keep evaluating, making sure that you're evaluating and getting your power team involved, like lawyers, accountants, advisors, and myself, to ensure that you're moving forward with good deals. Make sure that somebody takes a look at those contracts before we sign them, just to ensure that we have our exits in place if the deal is not something that we want to, if something comes up. Okay, so I just want you to remember that you're part of this community, part of this family. We want to make sure that you're protected. Do everything you're supposed to do when you're doing those deals with due diligence, and we'll be okay. Okay, all right. Thank you everybody for coming. I'm going to close out the meeting. I will see everybody next Tuesday. Okay, my pleasure. All right, have a great evening. Thanks, Tarek, again.